Hello. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about the language that I've been using and the language that I've sort of decided to be more mindful about using. So I had this conversation a while ago about it was with this with someone who's from here who's Honduran. And it was interesting because we were speaking about mentioned this before in the last video, but we were speaking about how there was this one man from the United States and he thought I looked Honduran. He thought I was Honduran. He said to me that I had really good English and I guess like I'm from Scotland. It's like my first language type of thing. Well, at first I didn't know if I should say something or not, but I just decided to say something anyway. So I was speaking to him about this and he was like, "Oh, that's so rude." And he was like more offended by it than I was. And I was like, I guess, but I guess he was trying to compliment me. And anyway, we were having like a bit of a conversation about it. And then he was saying that he doesn't like how I literally just did it. I just did it. How people from the United States just say they're American and they say that like for example, people from Honduras aren't American because he was saying that he's American. He's from Central America, so he is technically American. He wouldn't describe himself as American. He would say he's Honduran, but at the same time, it's like being mindful that, like, when you say America, if you just think the United States, then it's sort of, I don't know, it makes it sort of feel like the rest of America doesn't exist. And it's like saying, like, that's more important than the rest of America. And I could sort of understand where he was coming from that. Like, I guess, I don't know, I guess like with sometimes when people say like, oh, if you're talking in a British accent, that typically people mean like an accent from London. But I'm like, well, I'm also British and I don't sound like that. Like that type of thing. I'm not offended by it though. There's kind of a difference. I'm just sort of like, yeah, most of the time when people say like if something's British, they mean like London. Like especially when you're talking about accents rather than like um all of Britain as a whole, but whatever. So yeah, I've been like trying to be really mindful of like because I used to always just if I say American, I just mean people from the United States. And I think that's something that's very much embedded in people who just speak English as a first language, particularly because that's just what everyone says. Or maybe not everyone, but that's what a lot of people say. And yeah, I guess I'm just sort of trying to be more mindful of that, and saying like, someone from the US or like I had to Google it and it said like to say North Americans, but then I'm thinking like, what about people from Canada? They're Canadian, but they're also technically North American. And technically people from Mexico are also North American, but apparently you can say North American to describe someone who's from the US. I mean, at least it's more specific than just American, because obviously like there's North America, Central America, South America. So yeah. But I guess like it's just being really mindful and that's also what I spoke about in the last video as well near the end. Like I don't want to offend people. That's the last thing I'd want to do. And I really want to like learn as much as I can about being more mindful with my choice of words. I think I noticed that very particularly speaking Spanish because sometimes like I want to say something in a nice way and I want to say something really delicately, but sometimes I just like the way that I know how to say it might come across as more rude than how I want it to be perceived, you know? So it's just like choice of words. Like for example, if you just say to like a kid, like go away, that can be pretty rude. But if like that's sort of what you know how to say, and if it's like, another language that you're speaking in, you might accidentally come across as rude when you're just saying like, like go like leave the classroom or like I don't know, a gentler way of saying it might be like, I don't know, go sit down or just or just can you just excuse me for a minute or something like that. There are more gentle ways of saying it and then just saying go away because that can come across as kind of rude. So it's very much like choice of words, being mindful and trying like to I guess I wouldn't say coddle people, because it's not really like that. I guess just being aware that like of just trying not to sound like or come across as arrogant or rude, I guess, is what I'm trying to say and trying to do. So yeah, particularly speaking Spanish, I'm definitely trying to be like more aware of how I should say things. And yeah, so that it comes across the way that I want it to come across. So yeah. All right. Anyway, thank you for listening. And yeah, let me know if you usually say like Americans to describe people who are from the US, or if you would call them North Americans or like people from the US, because I have been working hard, and even then, even at the start, it was messed up, and I was like, I just said Americans by accident because it's just like a habit for me, I'm so used to it. But anyway, I'm being a lot more mindful about it now.